On June 23, 2025, the world was jolted awake by a series of events that would send shockwaves across every continent. As dawn broke, millions found themselves glued to their screens, their morning routines shattered by a sense of impending crisis. The catalyst was a stunning declaration from former President Donald J. Trump, whose words reverberated instantly across social media and news outlets. In a matter of minutes, his message became the focal point of global attention. Trump claimed in a dramatic online post that the United States had launched a series of devastating airstrikes, obliterating Iran's most critical nuclear facilities. The world watched in disbelief as images and headlines began to circulate, suggesting a sudden and massive escalation in the long-standing tensions between the two nations. The announcement bypassed all official government channels, leaving both America's allies and adversaries scrambling for answers. Diplomats urgently dialed their contacts, while world leaders convened emergency meetings, desperate to verify the truth behind the shocking claim. Was this real, or a dangerous bluff? The world was left in a state of confusion and fear, with no immediate confirmation or denial from Washington. Newsrooms buzzed with speculation, and the silence from official sources only deepened the uncertainty. Soon, unverified reports and shaky cell phone videos of explosions near sensitive sites in Tehran began to circulate online, fueling panic and wild speculation. Emergency vehicles raced through the city's streets as residents braced for the unknown. The lack of any official response from the US government created a dangerous vacuum. Global leaders rushed to convene emergency sessions, while military officials around the world monitored the situation from their command centers, aware that any miscalculation could have catastrophic consequences. A direct American strike on Iran's nuclear program would mark a monumental escalation, shattering decades of uneasy standoff and fragile diplomacy. The world had grown accustomed to threats and sanctions, but this was something entirely different, a bold, irreversible move. For years, conflict simmered beneath the surface, playing out through economic sanctions, cyber attacks, and proxy wars across the Middle East. Now, the specter of direct confrontation loomed larger than ever, threatening to engulf the region in chaos. Global markets plunged into turmoil, with stock tickers flashing red and investors scrambling to assess the fallout. Crowds gathered in public squares, watching breaking news unfold on giant screens, while border checkpoints braced for the possibility of mass movement and unrest. The world now stands on a knife's edge, bracing for what could be the start of a new, perilous chapter in history. The question on everyone's mind, echoing from the halls of power to the homes of ordinary people, remains: is this the spark that ignites a regional war, or can catastrophe still be averted? To truly grasp the impact of the alleged attack on Iran's nuclear program, we must first understand the significance of the sites that were reportedly targeted. These facilities are not just buildings, they are the backbone of Iran's decades-long pursuit of nuclear technology, and each plays a unique role in the country's ambitions. Let's take a closer look at these critical locations, which have been at the center of international scrutiny and tension for years. The Natanz and Fordow enrichment plants are the heart of Iran's uranium enrichment efforts. Natanz, sprawling and heavily guarded, is where thousands of centrifuges spin to enrich uranium, a process essential for both civilian energy and potentially nuclear weapons. Fordow, meanwhile, is built deep within a mountain, making it especially difficult to destroy, and a symbol of Iran's determination to shield its nuclear program from outside threats. Fordow's location and fortifications highlight the lengths Iran has gone to protect its most sensitive nuclear work, underscoring the strategic importance of this site. The Arak heavy water reactor, once capable of producing weapons-grade plutonium, was also reportedly struck. This facility has long been a point of contention, as it could provide Iran with an alternative path to a nuclear weapon separate from uranium enrichment. The Parchin military complex, shrouded in secrecy and long suspected of housing nuclear weapons research, may have been targeted as well. International inspectors have repeatedly sought access to Parchin, suspecting experiments related to bomb design. If these strikes are confirmed, the damage would be devastating, crippling Iran's nuclear infrastructure, setting back its scientific progress by years, and sending a powerful message to both Iran and the world. Each of these sites represents a different facet of Iran's nuclear capabilities, from the production of nuclear fuel to the possible development of nuclear weapons technology. Together, they form a complex web of facilities that have made Iran's program so difficult to contain. The message behind these attacks is clear: no part of Iran's nuclear program is beyond reach, and even the most fortified sites are vulnerable to determined adversaries. The sheer scale and precision of the operation suggest a deliberate and coordinated effort to dismantle Iran's nuclear future, raising the stakes in an already volatile region and leaving the world to wonder what comes next. Hours later, after a tense and anxious silence, Washington finally broke its silence, sending shockwaves through the Capitol and the world. At a high-stakes Pentagon press conference, the Secretary of Defense stepped forward, his expression grave. He confirmed that the United States had carried out a series of limited, highly precise airstrikes targeting Iranian nuclear facilities. The announcement was delivered with a sense of urgency, underscoring the seriousness of the situation. Officials explained that this action was not taken lightly. It was framed as a last resort, prompted by fresh intelligence indicating that Iran was only weeks away from producing weapons-grade nuclear material. Analysts had pored over satellite images and classified reports, piecing together a picture that left little room for doubt, at least in the eyes of U.S. leadership. According to U.S. officials, Iran had recently expelled IEA inspectors and dismantled key monitoring equipment, effectively blinding the international community. This, they argued, forced the administration's hand, leaving few options on the table. The operation itself was described as swift and technologically advanced, involving stealth bombers and cruise missiles launched from both air and sea. Every effort, they claimed, was made to minimize collateral damage and avoid civilian casualties, with targets chosen for their strategic importance. The Pentagon was adamant. The mission's goal was deterrence, not escalation. Officials stressed that the United States had no intention of starting a war or occupying Iranian territory. The message was clear. This was a warning, not an invasion. Yet as reporters pressed for answers, new questions emerged. Why had a former president been the first to announce the strikes rather than current officials? Was there a leak, or perhaps a deeper political motive at play behind the scenes? The official justification for the attack, a supposedly imminent threat, remains under intense scrutiny. To date, no concrete public evidence has been released to support the administration's claims, fueling speculation and skepticism among journalists and the public alike. Around the globe, news outlets scrambled to cover the unfolding story. International headlines blared the news of U.S. strikes, while ordinary people watched in disbelief, trying to make sense of the rapidly changing situation. For now, the world has been given an official narrative, but beneath the surface, uncertainty and suspicion continue to swirl. The real truth behind the decision and the full consequences of these actions remain hidden in the shadows, waiting to be revealed. Today's events are the climax of decades of shadow conflict between the US, Israel, and Iran. The struggle has played out through sanctions, cyber attacks, assassinations, and proxy wars. The 2015 nuclear deal once curbed Iran's program, but the US withdrawal reignited tensions. Iran ramped up enrichment, restricted inspectors, and edged closer to nuclear capability. Sabotage, assassinations, and attacks on oil infrastructure escalated the conflict. Recent intelligence suggested Iran was nearing a nuclear breakthrough, while proxy attacks killed US personnel. The combination of nuclear progress and violence convinced Washington that covert action was no longer enough. Direct intervention, once unthinkable, became reality. The shadow war has erupted into open confrontation. In the aftermath, Israel's silence is telling. For decades, Israel has viewed a nuclear Iran as an existential threat, often advocating for aggressive action. It's unlikely such a complex operation occurred without Israeli intelligence or coordination. Mossad's networks inside Iran are unmatched, and their targeting data likely shaped the strikes. Israel's proximity and capabilities may have provided crucial support, possibly even direct, covert involvement. By staying silent, Israel avoids immediate retaliation, letting the US take the spotlight. This behind-the-scenes partnership is a hallmark of US-Israel security ties. The roles may have reversed, but the strategic alliance remains. The question, will Iran see this as a joint attack, making Israel a target for reprisal? The region braces for Iran's response. The global reaction was swift and overwhelmingly negative. European allies condemned the strikes as a dangerous escalation, undermining years of diplomacy. The UN Secretary General called for restraint, warning the world cannot afford another Gulf war. Gulf states, anxious and vulnerable, remained silent but wary of retaliation. Regional mediators like Qatar and Oman urged calm, fearing for their own stability. Major economies like India and Japan expressed alarm over threats to oil supplies and global markets. The US now finds itself isolated, criticized by both friends and foes. The world fears this act may unleash uncontrollable chaos. Russia and China responded with forceful condemnation, calling the strikes blatant aggression. Both nations vowed to shield Iran diplomatically, warning of catastrophic consequences for global stability. China, a key Iranian partner, sees the attack as a threat to its interests and a challenge to multipolar order. At the UN, Moscow and Beijing will likely block any US-led resolutions, instead pushing to condemn American actions. This diplomatic standoff will paralyze the Security Council, deepening global divisions. There are fears Russia could supply Iran with advanced defenses while China may offer economic lifelines. Iran will not be isolated. This is now a broader geopolitical confrontation. The crisis has united America's rivals and fractured the world order. The strikes sent shockwaves through global markets. Oil prices soared, stocks plunged. The threat of Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz or attacking tankers now looms, risking a global recession. Airlines, shipping, and energy-dependent industries are already feeling the pain. The economic fallout could worsen if conflict escalates, hurting consumers worldwide. Iran, outmatched militarily, can retaliate through proxies like Hezbollah and militias across the region. A multi-front proxy war would be chaotic and hard to contain, drawing in other powers. Iran's missile arsenal and cyber capabilities add to the threat of unpredictable escalation. Each retaliatory step risks a cycle of violence with no clear exit. The world teeters on the brink of a conflict that could spiral out of control. The world stands at a crossroads, the future uncertain. Iran's response will determine whether this crisis escalates or finds a diplomatic off-ramp. Massive retaliation could trigger all-out war, destabilizing the region and beyond. The alternative, a return to dialogue, seems remote but not impossible. Third-party mediators may yet open back channels for de-escalation. The stakes are immense. Has the world been made safer or has a fuse been lit? The coming days will be critical as leaders weigh war and peace. The world watches, hoping for restraint and wisdom. The choice between catastrophe and fragile peace hangs in the balance.